Hey guys, it's me Seren back with another video. This video is going to be about roots and narratives. Really mostly going to be about narratives, my millionth video on narratives. I haven't seen Roots yet. It came on this past Monday, Memorial Day. I don't have cable. We don't have cable. So hopefully they put it up on I think it's coming on like the History Channel, A&E, Lifetime, and like some other channel. So hopefully they put it up for streaming on the website, or I could find a link or something, because I do want to watch it, but I don't have cable, so I can't watch it on TV. The only other way for me to watch it would be to like set up one of those accounts and then like delete it real quick or something, like how y'all do with Tidal. But I haven't had the opportunity to watch it yet. So this video is not going to be really like a review, which I know you guys are probably going to want. Once I get the chance to watch it, I will do a review, what I think about it. But this video is going to be about some of the controversy that's surrounding this show. I was about to say movie, but show, and not just this show, but also Underground on WGN, Nat Turner's Birth of a Nation, 12 Years a Slave, which I did not see because I didn't want to see it. I didn't have any desire to see it. And this controversy that surrounds slave narratives. So Snoop Dogg went on this like rant. I think it might have been on Snapchat. He went on this rant about, you know, how he's like sick and tired of these slave movies, and he's like so over seeing our people as slaves, and our people have been more than just slaves, and you know, we just keep seeing these same fucking images, and you know, pretty much comments that I get all the time. I get these types of comments all the time here on YouTube, on Twitter. People want to have conversations. Someone hit me up on Twitter a couple months ago when they heard about Nate Parker's Birth of a Nation, and I was like, well, I don't think you know very much about it because it's about Nat Turner and a slave rebellion. The person was like, oh, it's like another like movie about like meek, docile slaves. I was like, not Birth of a Nation, like not Nat Turner. Like this is about a hardcore like slave rebellion. So like you should read up a little bit more on that before you try to have this conversation. Because what do I always say? Uninformed opinions are shit. But anyways, so I get these types of comments all the time. This kind of like railing against slave narratives. Now, I didn't see 12 Years a Slave. I wasn't interested. I didn't think it looked interesting. I didn't want to see that play out. And really for a lot of the reasons that people say, that people utilize, and what Snoop said, you know, I thought that it was a tired narrative. And I didn't want to see it, so I didn't see it. But I don't have an issue with the fact that the movie was made. Like a lot of people have an issue, like Snoop is calling for a boycott. Like he wants people to boycott Roots. Like he has a problem with the fact that this remake, which for anyone that doesn't know, it's a remake of a 1977 classic Roots miniseries that came on TV that was based off of the book by Alex Haley, which you should definitely read. Great book. You should definitely watch the original. It starred LeVar Burton as Kunta Kinte. Please read the book and watch the original. But he's calling for a boycott. Like, it offends him that they're even doing this reboot, remake, whatever. It didn't offend me that they were making 12 Years a Slave. I personally was not interested, so I didn't watch it. I think this type of commentary that we should not create any more slave narratives. I think that that's, like, as if there's something wrong or offensive about it. I think that those critiques are incredibly short-sighted. And I don't really think that they're that well thought out. Like, they're not critically thought out, in my opinion. And I really hate how people look at things as an either or, right? Either you have slave narratives or you have other narratives. It's not an either or. We need a variety of narratives. That is the issue. The issue is not slave narratives. There's nothing inherently offensive about a slave narrative. There's literally nothing wrong with slave narratives. They're extremely important to ensure that we never forget the history of this country, especially now when all people want to do is pretend that slavery was like a million years ago. And, you know, people say all the time, slavery ended 400 years ago. No, bitch. Please go back to school. Please take a fucking history class. Slavery ended 150 years ago, which is 3 3 generations, basically. Like, my great-grandmother, who died when I was 13, one of her parents was a slave. Okay, that was 3 generations ago. Like, that was the blink of an eye in terms of history and in terms of the passage of time. And we just celebrated in 2015. 2015? Yeah, we just celebrated in 2015 the 50-year anniversary of the Civil Rights Movement. Like, that shit just happened. It just fucking happened. It took me a minute to remember because I was in Alabama. I was in Selma for the 50-year, but I couldn't remember if that was this year or last year because time fucking zooms, man. That was April of last year. That was April of 2015. Feels like it was this year. But yeah, so, you have people that want to pretend that slavery was a million years ago, and Jim Crow was a million years ago, and segregation was a million years ago, and that none of this stuff affects us right now, because right now, this moment exists within a vacuum, without any type of context or relation to history and to the past, and, we're living in this post-racial society, and racism is over, and all that shit is bullshit. Slavery and segregation and Jim Crow were all very recent in terms of history, and the ramifications of slavery inform literally every facet of our society. The fact that America became a superpower so fast, faster than really any other organized, nation and first world country, is because of slavery, because it was built on the backs of free labor. They were literally able to build an entire economy without putting anything back. It was just, money coming out because of chattel slavery. And that is important, and we should never, ever forget. They're already trying to roll out, revisionist history books out in Texas where they don't use the word slavery, where they call us immigrants, like as if we willingly came over here and fucking worked for free. Like, no, we need to remember. It's very important. If we forget where we come from, we're doomed to repeat the past. Y'all better watch Sankofa. Y'all don't want to watch Roots, fucking go rent Sankofa and watch it. When I was a little kid, my grandma took me to the movies to see that shit. That shit had a real fucking impact on my brain. Go watch that shit, And there's nothing wrong, and I just feel like there's nothing inherently wrong with slave narratives. Octavia Butler, amazing Black female author who wrote speculative fiction and science fiction. She wrote Kindred, which is kind of about, it's a slave narrative, but it's like a slave sci-fi time travel. We have a woman who's time traveling between the present, and she's time traveling between the past, and her ancestors on the plantation, and she's kind of like using these parallels between the present and the past. There's not one type of slave narrative. There's a whole bunch. There's a lot of things you can do. And again, there's a whole bunch of different types of narratives for Black people in general. Again, I hate how people look at things as an either or. Either you have slave narratives or you have other narratives. The issue is not with slave narratives themselves, but with the fact that other narratives aren't being made in addition to slave narratives. The fact that we're not even getting new, fresh takes on slave narratives. Like, I would love to get a movie or some type of mini-series on Kindred. Like, that would be amazing, Like, I don't like the call for the boycott of Roots because there's nothing wrong with the fact that it exists. We just need more, To me, it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face, It's along the lines of, like, this whole, like, race is the problem, not racism. When people say that shit, like, you're worried about the wrong things. Like, you're worried about the wrong things. The wrong things. You worry about the wrong things. That's old Kanye. Pre-crazy. So sad. But yeah, to me, like, when people say that, that, like, race is the problem, if we just stop talking about race, racism will go away. Like, no, race is not the problem. Racism is. Slave narratives are not the problem. A lack of variety in narratives is not the is the problem, excuse me. Slave narratives aren't the problem. Lack of other Black narratives is the problem. So instead of calling for a boycott of Roots, Snoop Dogg and whoever else, because I know y'all going to be in the comment section just like y'all were in the Harriet Tubman video, instead of calling for a boycott of Roots, why don't you call for a conversation about getting more narratives out there in addition to Roots, right? Just calling for a boycott of Roots or Underground or 12 Years a Slave or Birth of a Nation, calling for a boycott of those things because you're personally tired of slave narratives is short-sighted, and again, you're worried about the wrong things. It's not an either or. It's not either slave narratives or other narratives. It's in addition to. push for more narratives in addition to slave narratives, which will always be important. Slave narratives are never gonna not be important. Never. Never. Like, I'm sorry, they're not. Yes, we are more than that, so we need more narratives, but we are that also, and that is a part of our history, and it is important. So we need that, and we also need more narratives. It's not an either or, and it's just so small-minded and petty to boycott it. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, shut up. Like, LeVar Burton himself is like a great example of, you know, headlining multifaceted Black narratives. Like, yes, he was Kunta Kinte in Roots. He was the lead of Roots. He was also the host of Reading Rainbow, you know, which was a children's show about books, which I think he's trying to raise money to reboot that as well. He's also one of the executive producers on this Roots remake. He was also on Star Trek playing a blind person. So that was like a great, you know, example of a Black person with a disability in space, you know? So, like, we've seen him as a slave. We've seen him as a host of a reading show. We've seen him, you know, in space. He presented us with a variety of narratives to choose from, and that is the issue. The issue is not just that he fucking played Kunta Kinte. The issue is that he gave us a variety of narratives to choose from, and that is what we need now. But saying, like, oh, like, fuck slave narratives, and, like, I don't want to see any more slave narratives. Like, okay, well, that's fine. You don't personally have to see them. I personally have never in my life seen that 1 minute of 12 Years a Slave because I didn't want to watch that. Like, I had no desire to see that. But for the other people that wanted to see it, or felt like they needed to see it, or felt like their children needed to see it, like, that's still an important narrative to have out there in the world. We just need other narratives in addition to that. So, like, stop with the either or. It can either be this or this. No, we need a variety. We need a wide variety. It's like white people have the World War II movies, and they have the Holocaust movies, and they have the gang movies, and they have all these movies about all these various points in their history and our history too, because they will step into an African narrative real quick. But they have all these movies about various points of in their history, and it's not like, you guys are making these World War II movies. You're making too many World War II movies. We need to boycott these World War II movies so that we can make sure that a movie about the Vietnam War gets out. Like, how ridiculous does that sound, right? Like, how silly does that sound? Like, there needs to be space for all of the narratives, because there's space for all of the narratives within the white supremacist ideology. So we can have space for all of our narratives too. So just, like, don't be short-sighted. Like, think critically. Like, I always try to tell you guys to, like, think critically and, like, think bigger. Think bigger than the right now, this moment, this one issue. You know, it's not an either or, it's an in addition to. In addition to slave narratives, we also need, again, slave rebellion narratives, motherfucking slave time travel narratives. We also need, you know, what's something else? We also need narratives about fucking Harriet Tubman being a general in the Civil War. We also need narratives about Crispus Attucks in fucking the Revolutionary War in the 1700s. We also need narratives about the first Black settlement in St. Augustine in Florida. We also need we need complex narratives. That doesn't mean that slave narrative shouldn't exist. It's very small-minded to say that and think that. So just, like, try to think a little bit bigger and more critically. And again, it's about variety. It's not about either or. It's not about boycott this so that we can get that. It's about saying, you know, we have a full history. Let's represent all of it. That does not mean boycott the slave shit. Like, that doesn't mean that there's something inherently wrong with that, because it's not. There's not. You know, but it's also about, in addition to that, let's get this made, let's get this made, let's get this green light, let's get this green light, let's get this green light, let's do this, let's have this, so we can have a well-rounded representation. See what I'm saying? So, I do want to watch Roots, though. I'm going to watch it. The book, I remember reading the book as a child and watching the miniseries. And also watch Sankofa if you haven't seen it. Excellent, excellent film. It's also kind of time travel-y about a woman who's very vain and self-centered, living in the modern times. Now, this was in the early 90s. I was very small when my grandmother took me to see this movie. She's very vain and self-centered, set in the modern times, and then she kind of gets sent back in time to slavery times to learn about the past and why it's important, because the whole concept of Sankofa is, if you don't, you have to learn from the past to move into the future, and if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. So it's very important to have historical narratives. They've made again, a million World War II movies, a million Holocaust movies, a million Vietnam War movies. At this point, they've made a million movies about the Iraq War, a million movies about fucking the Boston mob scene, and they're gonna keep making those movies. And they're going to also keep making time travel movies about white people. And they're going to also keep making romantic comedies. And they're going to also keep making art history movies. It's about kind of like what I said in my Shea Moisture video. It's about understanding that we ourselves are big. We are vast. We are multifaceted. We contain multitudes. And there's enough space for everything. You don't have to boycott one thing to make space for something else. We can walk and talk and chew gum and jump on one leg all at the same time. There's space for everything. So yeah, I just wanted to make a video about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'm not arguing with any of you in the comment section about this, because I already know it's going to be people in the comment section like, well, but no, they should need to stop making slave movies because we are not slaves. Blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm not even entertaining that. I'm a Black American. I'm descended from slaves. That doesn't offend me. That doesn't upset me. I'm proud of that. I'm fucking magic. The fact that I'm even here right now, that my fucking people survived the Middle Passage, survived slavery, survived segregation, survived Jim Crow, survived lynchings. For me to fucking be sitting here right now is amazing, and I'm not gonna fucking be ashamed of that. You're not gonna make me feel bad about that. So keep it to yourself, save it. But y'all can talk amongst yourselves. So food for thought as always. There will be links in the description box. Have you seen Roots? Have any of you seen Roots? What have you thought about it? The original too, but the new one. What have you guys thought about it? Let me know if you have any links where I can watch it. But I'd rather watch it legit, so I hope that they put it up on the History Channel website or something. So yeah, food for thought as always. See you guys next time. Peace.